Tonight's event is not a debate, but rather a conversation with candidates that we hope will be informative as you prepare to vote in this election. Thank you all for coming out and being informed, and we pray that you will help inform others. Our moderator for this evening is Mr. Robert Cherry. Robert is a native of Windsor, Bertie County, North Carolina. Robert was initiated into Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated by way of the Ada Nu chapter of East Carolina University on April 6, 2002. Robert went on to serve as the chapter's recording secretary and vice president. Robert drafted the first judicial board procedure for ECU's chapter of the National Pan-Hellenic Council and was awarded NPHC Fraternity Man with the highest GPA during his junior and senior year. Robert earned a bachelor's degree from ECU in 2004 and was selected as Outstanding Senior of the Criminal Justice Department. As an actively involved ECU alumnus, Robert was honored as an ECU 40 Under 40 Leadership Award recipient in 2016. In 2017, Robert was awarded ECU NPHC Advisor of the Year. Robert began his first term appointment to the ECU Alumni Association Board of Directors this fall. Remaining active with his fraternity, Robert is the immediate past president of the Zeta Eta Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, seated in Greenville, North Carolina, where he served as chapter president for a total of 8 years. Professionally, Robert is employed as an SIU investigator for GEICO. He holds memberships in the International Association of Special Investigation Units and North Carolina Insurance Crime Information Exchange. Robert resides in Greenville, North Carolina with his wife of 14 years, Ms. Nakia Cherry, and their 2 sons, Cameron and Brandon. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Robert Cherry, your moderator for the evening. He will now share the rules and the format of the Candidates Forum.
Thank you, Rebecca. Rules. Before we begin, we would like to remind everyone of the rules of this forum. All candidates were made aware and agreed to the rules prior to this evening. The rules are as follows. To preserve a nonpartisan atmosphere during the forum, no campaign banners, signs, or other campaign paraphernalia will be allowed, including on the candidate's person. Campaign literature may be placed on a designated table on the side of the room after the forum discussion. As moderator, I will interrupt the discussion to enforce the rules and format if needed. Time limits are as follows. 2 minutes for an opening statement from each candidate. 1 minute for responses to questions. 2 minutes for a closing statement from each candidate. The timekeepers will keep track of the time allotted to candidates. The timekeepers will hold up signs indicating 30 seconds left and stop at the appropriate times. Questions from the audience will be screened prior to being asked. Format. The agenda for this evening will follow as shown in your program. Instead of all 9 candidates being on stage at once, we will segment the forum based on individual municipal races in the following order. First, District 1 candidates. Second, District 2 candidates. Third, at-large candidates. And lastly, candidates for mayor. District 1. We'll begin with the candidates for District 1. Because Councilmember Monica Daniels is the only candidate in this race this evening and present, she will be given 5 minutes. Councilmember Daniels, you may begin with your opening statement and share your platform beginning now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Cherry. My name is Monica Daniels, and I currently hold District 1 seat and am seeking that seat again. I was born in Greenville, but raised in New York City. I returned to Greenville, North Carolina at the age of 21 where I married and raised my children here. I love this city. I have enjoyed sitting on the City 1 Council seat and serving my community. My platform thus far, since being appointed in January, has been communication and accountability. I have walked the streets of Greenville in each one of my neighborhoods. I've met with individuals. I have visited churches. I've listened to the citizens, their concerns, and their needs. I've been transparent. I've made no promises that I cannot keep because I know that we do this work together. It is not a one-man show. In running for City Council and serving individuals here, I've found that in our communities, there is a lack of balance, and I'm trying to bring that balance back. But that begins with us. In each of our communities, it is our responsibility to care for our neighbors, care for one another, and help build this city. As a City Council member, it has been a pleasure to meet with everyone. It has been hard because people don't play. People are very honest, forthright. One thing that I've learned is, as a citizen of Greenville, I've utilized a lot of the services that I've realized that a lot of people do not have access to or are not aware of. Some of those are housing. I believe that housing and home ownership is a wonderful opportunity for citizens, and the resources that we have here in Greenville should be known and available to all of those citizens. I was fortunate to be a recipient of housing and to raise my children. We've learned that home ownership, financial literacy, education, all those things that come make for a better community, a better and a stronger community, which makes Greenville a better and a stronger city. And that is all. And if there are any questions before my 5 minutes are up, you are free to ask. Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Point of clarity. All questions must be screened and submitted
my
prior
apologies.
to being asked. Thank you
Thank you.
for your time and consideration. Councilmember Daniels,
Yes, sir.
describe the greatest accomplishment of the City Council in the last 2 years, in your opinion.
I think the greatest accomplishment of the City Council, other than working together in unity, has been the opportunity to rebuild Greenville as a whole. There's a lot going on in Greenville, I know it looks like the streets are torn up and buildings are coming down, but that is the rubble before the beauty. Once a lot of these things are accomplished, Greenville will be the Greenville that we want it to be. We will be moving forward into a new era for our city.
Councilmember Daniels,
Yes, sir.
describe the greatest area of improvement needed by the City Council in the next 2 years.
With no doubt, it would be unity. I think that Greenville needs to, we need to focus on the entire city, not just one area. We need to focus on creating jobs, homes, all those things for every area in Greenville and not just one district. I think as we rebuild, as we grow, we need to not hop over areas and just focus on specific areas, but we need to include each of our citizens in the changes and the growth that is occurring here. You changed your mind? Okay. Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Daniels, in what ways do you intend to connect with your constituents?
In every legal way possible. I think it's important to speak with people, to be available to individuals. I think it's important to be honest with individuals. Like I said earlier, Saturday morning coffee, lunchtime, visiting churches, walking neighborhoods with the citizens, whatever it takes for the citizens to know who I am, for me to get to know them, and to realize the changes that they want, or the growth that they just want in their community. So being available, open, and honest.
Seeing there are no further questions, Councilmember Daniels, thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Excuse me.
And as we wait, I know that I'm unopposed, but I would still love your vote, District 1, for all those who live in my district.
Councilmember Daniels, a question from the audience reads as follows. What is your plan to revive Operation Sunshine, Strive, and the Little Willie Center?
It's interesting. I would love to continue, Operation Sunshine to continue. They assisted me with my girls when I didn't have anyone else to help with them for after school, so that I can return to school and obtain my degree. Once out of school, my first job was at Strive. And having grown up on Vance Street, the Little Willie Center has always been there. So I will definitely look into their needs, see what it takes, and then move forward from there.
Thank you. Councilmember Daniels, second question from the audience reads as follows. Did you meet with residents north of the river? And if so, how have you addressed their needs?
I have met with residents north of the river. I actually live north of the river. I reside in Countryside Estates, where my family and I have lived for the past 15 years. I've attended a neighborhood association meeting and heard the concerns. We've brought the police there, housing, and other areas. And so from what I've heard from the citizens there, we have been moving forward. The lighting is there. During the storm, I went through the neighborhoods to ensure that the drainages were clear, sent that in to those who can clean it up, and we are moving forward across the river. We're growing.
Thank you. Councilmember Daniels, do you have a closing statement you'd like to provide? If so, you have 2 minutes starting now.
I would like to thank you all for taking this time to allow me to be a part of this forum. I have enjoyed serving because I am a servant. As a social worker, I have served abused and neglected children for the past 15 years. That is something that has taken me in the community. So being on the council is not my first time going out, reaching people, talking to people, going into homes. It is what I do. It is who I am. As we move forward, I believe that we have to move forward together. It is fine for all of us to demand things of our leadership, but leadership begins with us. We are the best advocates for our community. My phone is always open my doors are always open, so I'm there for the citizens in District 1 and Greenville as a whole. One good thing about our current council is we work together as a team because we know what is important, and that is the citizens of Greenville. Thank you.
This concludes tonight's segment for District 1. Thank you, Councilmember Daniels. Next, we have our candidates for District 2. The candidates for District 2 will be given a collective of 30 minutes. Please welcome Councilmember Rose Glover and candidate Ernest Reeves. I ask the audience, if you have questions for District 2 candidates, please begin writing them down now so that we have time to screen those questions in the allotted time. Thank you. Councilmember Glover, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement starting now.
Everyone in this room knows me. I am District 2 representative and have been District 2 resident representative since 1999. We've been able to do a lot of things in District 2. Even people don't see what we have done in West Greenville because we are remodeling homes, we're fixing up homes, old homes that people live in, that they're not energy efficient, so we're trying to make those homes energy efficient. I have worked for the citizens of District 2 since '99, and I work all over the city as well, because we have to. But my heart is in District 2, and my heart is in the District 2 people, because I know the needs. They are more needy than my people who are in Star Hill Farms. They don't need me unless somebody's trying to do rezone something or do something that's going to upset them. So it is important that I put my time into the least of the people who are in West Greenville, my seniors, my children, and my adults who are in need for different services. So it has been a pleasure working and helping the people in my district, because when I started to work way back with Weed and Seed, there was so many things that need to be done, and I always tell people that was my desert. When I worked in Weed and Seed, I was able to see what was needed to be done, and I began to immediately start to doing those things. So I know this district inside out. Everyone in this district know me. I have contacted me or been in touch with me or seen me one time or 2 times or 3 times. But I apologize for being late because I've been out campaigning and I didn't have time to go home and change clothes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Candidate Reeves, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement, starting now.
Mr. Chair and the council, thank you all, the public, for being here. I'm Ernest Reeves. I'm very glad to be here, and this is home for me. I grew up across the street some 55 years ago. Most of my sisters and brothers attended school right here. I remember one night when the smoke and fire was over here and all the police and everybody was over here, and the following year they transitioned over to J.H. Rose High School. Well, I think somewhere around that time frame. So I grew up in this neighborhood, played here. One of my childhood friends is here. I was the king of bumper pool right here. So I live in District 2. I'm running for city council because I love the city. I love the people, the different neighborhoods, and I want to make a difference. A little bit about me. Like I said, I grew up across the street. I'm the last of 12 kids. My parents have 12 kids, 9 girls, 3 boys, all by the same parents. Grew up right across the street right here. I entered the military after my mother passed in high school. I got that call the following year. I went into the military behind my 2 brothers and served 20 years in the military, 9 years as a enlisted soldier sergeant, 10.5 years as a military officer. Had a great opportunity to go and work in corporate America, and then I came back to Greenville to spend some time with my family, my older elderly family, which I enjoyed, helping them, and my passion is helping people. And I love talking to people. I grew up with a very bad speech impediment and ended up going to St. Aul, majoring in communications. And many of you all have voted for me either for the U.S. Senate or for the United States Congress. And now I would like to become the city council member to be your next voice downtown, serving the people here on the city council. Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Candidate Reeves. Councilmember Glover, in what ways do you connect with your constituents?
I always like to be personal with my constituents. I will either go to their homes or I will invite them to my home. And mostly the seniors are the ones who call me most of the time. But then there are other issues that I have to go and address right away, like some housing issues with slum landlords and things like that. But the way I connect with my people is through my heart. And I connect with them and try to make sure that every need that they have is taken care of before I finish with them.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Candidate Reeves, In what ways would you connect with your constituents?
Well, everybody knows me. I love to talk, so I spend a lot of time at Walmart, McDonald's. Many days, my sister, she's been on the Great Bus route for 34 years, and they'll go through her to get to me and want me to call them to come and talk to them, whether it's to pray for them or if they need help. I help a lot of people by phone. They'll call me if they need housing or something like that and they can't get help from the city council. I'll make a couple calls or maybe write a letter for them or try to help them myself personally. So that's what I've been doing. That's what I will continue to do if I'm fortunate enough to become the next voice on the city council for District 2.
Thank you, Candidate Reeves. Councilmember Glover, describe yourself and how you think the city can benefit from your leadership.
Well, I describe myself as sweet and aggressive. So that is how I work with people, and that's how, you know, if I have to be in a situation where I'm fighting for someone, it's going to be a fight. And I can be real sweet, and I can be aggressive with that fight. Whatever's necessary so that I can get that particular citizen's point across and their needs across. So, like I said, I work from my heart. I'm a minister at heart. And I do know how to talk, and I do know how to go up and down whenever it's necessary. And but the main point is that I get my citizen taken care of.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Same question, Candidate Reeves. Describe yourself and how you think the city can benefit from your leadership.
I consider myself as a person that's reliable. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I do my best to try to do it. Most people know that sometimes when you leave the military after being on time for 20 years, sometimes you might be a little bit late, but if I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I would try my best to get it done. If I can't do it, I'll tell the person that I can't do it. But 99% of the time, if someone calls me for help, I'll do whatever and move mountains to try to help that person. If I can't do it, I'll call some pastor, or if I may call the city council member, or I may, you know, just go through another means to try to get them some help. Sometimes if they, you know, they need loans or something, I'll try to put them in contact with people that, you know, that do loans. But I'll do my best to try to help them. So I consider myself reliable, and I love talking, so I think those skills can work should I be the next voice on the Greenville City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Reeves. Next question from the audience reads as follows. It appears that East Carolina University continues to move further into the community. What are your thoughts, and how can the neighborhoods and people there be preserved? Councilmember Glover.
I realize that both the hospital and ECU is encroaching on our neighborhoods, but as a representative, I will stand flat-footed with the community and say, you can't have our community, because a lot of these people have been living in these homes. These are generational homes that are in West Greenville. People have generations and generations has lived in those homes, and my job is to make sure that they live in those homes. And if the hospital or the medical school decide to encroach, I am right there at the hospital. I mean, only thing that separates myself and the hospital is Memorial Drive. So I know that I will be fighting for everyone as I fought for the people, for the citizens on Farmer Boulevard, to make sure that they got decent and good housing when they were asked to move, and make sure that they got a minimum housing wage that they could from their sale of that property, so that they could be able to buy another home without being in debt.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Candidate Reeves, same question.
That's a very serious question. It's one that I like this. I've talked to many in the community, and it's just not ECU coming to where this neighborhood, they're already here. And many people consider gentrification, and I know that that wasn't the question, but what's happening is right now, They are tearing down houses, building new houses, and the people that could live there can't live there anymore. And then what happens is they are building other housing area where the people here, they can't afford to live there. And just a case in point, they changed Farmer Boulevard to 10th Street Connector, then they put on Dr. Leo Jenkins, plus, you know, they named the bridge after Dr. Best. But many people have complained that they don't know that that has taken place. So what's happening is we have to make sure, I would like to see the city council put a permit in place for builders and a tax that if they move into West Greenville and build a house, that they have to pay a tax to the city.
Thank you, Candidate Reeves. Next question from the audience reads as follows. If elected, what are your proposals for the city and the community? Please tell us what solutions you will propose for the community. Councilmember Glover.
I can tell you the solutions that I have already started, and that is to improve the homes in West Greenville, and also that we are not left out of any planning, because West Greenville is one of the oldest communities in Greenville. And so therefore, we're going to protect our citizens, we're going to protect our community, we're going to protect our properties, and make sure that gentrification does not happen to us. As you know, there is quite a bit of rental in West Greenville, but they have to look after the community and do what they're supposed to do, just like we who own our homes there. That has been a big thing for me, and all the landlords that are in West Greenville, they know me. Some of them sold their property to get away from me. So, you know, if anyone else wants to sell, they can sell that. We'll take it and build and remodel a house and make it a home for someone else to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Candidate Reeves.
Yes. Should I be fortunate enough to be the next voice on the city council, I'm going to start over from scratch. I want to call the community together. I know the plans that we have, we're going to continue with those plans that's already set in motion, but I want to call the business leaders together, and we want to come up with a list of 5 priorities for our community, and we're going to tackle them together and one by one. What's been happening is in this district, 5 years ago, they had a great revitalization plan. That plan is still going on now. The people are saying, what's going on? But they're saying houses being tore down and empty lots. But when those houses are rebuilt, they're not going to the people that used to live there. And if you can't afford to pay your rent, certainly you can't afford to buy a house. So we need to start with that. But a new list, bring the community together, we're going to get things done. We're not going to do what we've done before. That's my priority. That's my promise to you, and I'm asking you for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Reeves. Next question from the audience reads as follows. What are your plans for social redevelopment within the community? For example, what social programs do you plan to implement to better help and assist the youth to get a head start on adulthood? Councilmember.
Social programs. Right now, I'm working with the church that you all know, Sevier Chapel. They have a new minister there, and he's trying to get involved in the community. He's had several gatherings with the community. What we were looking at doing, we went and we looked at the building, myself and Ken Gray from the city of Greenville. The first thing we're going to try to help him do is to get a roof on that building, because it needs a roof on it now. So that is what we talked to him about. Now, socially, I am connected to a lot of senior groups. I'm connected to a lot of youth groups. I'm connected to a lot of groups from ECU, a lot of student groups from ECU. So we can work together. We have a Human Relations Council, and the Human Relations Council addresses the issues that we are having in our communities and bring them to us. And let me say that the houses in West Greenville that are being torn down, they are torn down because the renter did not want to rehab it.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Candidate Reeves, same question.
Should I be fortunate to be elected to the city council, I want to propose a utility fund, which would be a grant that would help seniors. Electricity is expensive. GUC has a lot of money, the money that we pay. And I would like to see a fund that's available to seniors, that they could get $50 a month during a 3-month period, those that need help. Also, a homeless fund that a young man walked into, I went to the Coalition Against Racism the other day. He walked in and said that he was stopped by the police because he was sleeping on the ground, and he said, look, I have nowhere to go. And we live in a city that's prosperous. We must do something about that. A homeless fund that, if nothing more, it could provide hot soup when it's cold outside and give somebody a pillow and a blanket, and at least come up with an area where, maybe they don't, it's not what they desire, but at least they can be warm when it's cold outside. We must do something to help the citizens of District 2. We can't keep doing what we've been doing. It's not right.
Thank you, Candidate Reeves. Next question from the audience reads as follows. The Board of Elections made a mistake concerning this race. Would you be willing to support the person who gets the most votes in this race, regardless of who wins? Councilmember Glover.
That's a really hard question. I need about an hour for that. But the Board of Elections really messed up. They did not do their audit the way they were supposed to, and they messed up. And they have been messing up since 2002. The city of Greenville redistricted in 2002, and it's very clear on that line that Mr. Landry is in District 1. So the Board of Elections says that makes him a non-legitimate member. But we did meet, we've been meeting with them, and so whatever the state tells the Board of Elections here to do, that is what they have to do. And I do feel really sorry for Mr. Landry, because if it were me and I went to vote for myself and found out that I was in District 2, District 1, and I had been in District 2 for 20 years, I would be just as upset as Mr. Landry is. But what we need to do is make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Candidate Reeves, your response to the question. Candidate Reeves, your response to the question.
I made my comments known at the Board of Elections the other day, so I will, most people say I'm real and duly, but for this one, I'm not going to make any comments because I don't know what the outcome of the race is going to be, and I don't want to be held legally for what I say. So I will just take a pass on this. I made my comments known. You can go back and look at, all the news will. I did apologize to Mr. Landry. It is a travesty, to say the least, and no one should be treated that way. The board made a decision, and I won't sit here and tell you now that if she get more votes than me or I get more votes than her, those are some that we have to wait until the end to see how it shake out. I don't think I don't think it's right for Councilwoman Glover or myself to answer that question legally, because it may end up being different. Thank you so much.
Candidate Reeves, thank you. Next question from the audience reads as follows. Candidate Reeves, this question is directed towards you. Can you tell the citizens what you have been doing recently to benefit the community? Candidate Reeves, yes.
Well, as you all know, many of you all have seen my signs and stuff. I have been on the political campaign trail. I was one of the 20-plus people to run for Congress. And of course, I ran throughout the 17 counties, which is, it takes very time-consuming, very expensive, telling people about my platform, and also making sure that people understand that, that everyone deserves an opportunity to serve. And being a member of the minority community, I always stress the importance of homeownership and minorities in government and being able to serve the people. I have several companies that I own, and I help people. I'm a community advocate, but I do it behind closed doors. Many people contact me for help. I do that. I'm also going around throughout the community helping seniors. Many seniors call me. Either I read for them, make runs for them, help them with different things of that sort. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Reeves. Next question is from the audience and reads as follows. Councilmember Glover, this question is for you.
All right.
Mayor P.J. Connolly has used your image in his campaign materials. Do you align yourself with the mayor who aligns himself with President Trump, who does not favor affordable housing?
No, I do not. There are things that we're not always going to be the same, but I can say that we work together well. Everything that I have put forth for our community has been passed during the city council. During this stay on the city council, I have worked with many. I have worked with Republicans. I've worked with Democrats. I worked with independents. But as long as we know that we don't let our Democrat or Republican get in the way, we can work together and make Greenville a whole lot better place to live, and including West Greenville. I never leave them out, so we can do that much better. I probably didn't answer the question like you wanted me to.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Next question for both candidates. One of the city's goals was to work on enhancing neighborhoods. What initiative have you pushed to deal with this goal, or seeking election? What are some of your ideas to enhance neighborhoods? Councilmember Glover.
Some of my ideas to enhance the neighborhood would be to build affordable housing. If we can build affordable housing as we did at Nathaniel Green on 5th Street, that was a project, but was for affordable housing, and that was successful. Also, there is another project in District 2 that was built on Hooker Road, and that was successful. And we have the opportunity to make West Greenville much better by building affordable homes, townhomes, or whatever homes it is, so that the seniors, if they want to, can move out of their home and move into a nice home where they don't have to pay high utility bills, they don't have to worry about the water or the electricity being cut off. So those are the things that we can do to make our community better. I know the needs, and I just have to work with my council people to make sure that our needs are being taken care of.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Candidate Reeves, your response to the question.
Yes, I put forth on my website something that doesn't only benefit District 2, but the city as a whole. I'd like to see a brand new mall brought to Greenville. And I think that it will add jobs, and I would like to see also 5th Street restored. My father used to have a business here in Greenville. He had a landscaping business. My uncle had one of the first black barbershops here, Dupree's Barbershop. When I used to be the paper boy on 5th Street, we had everything from Fleetway to the Tea Room. You go down 5th Street, businesses sprawling, African-American owned business. I used to be the paper boy going up by Barnard Lane, and I would like to see that restored. They've been talking about it, but nothing has happened. I would like to see that happen, but I would definitely like to see a new mall brought forth. Should I be elected to be the next voice, I'm gonna push. One of my first priorities, I'm gonna bring a brand new mall with people being hired, written into the rules for people being hired right here in Greenville from District 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Reeves. Councilmember Glover, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement, beginning now.
What I'd like to say is I will continue, if I win the election, when I win the election, I will continue to work for the underserved communities. I will continue to bring up affordable housing. We need affordable houses in these communities, because in the communities that these people stay, that they are paying rent to live in substandard housing, and they're paying more rent than it would cost them to live in an affordable house. The utility bills, or some people have called me, the utility bills were $1,100 or $1,200 a month. That is absolutely ridiculous. And so we know that because of the housing being so old in this area, then that is why they cannot get their homes fixed. We have been given an endowment with this council and myself, and we have committed to do at least 10 homes, weatherize at least 10 homes, and helps our Jackie Robinson League, and help some of the nonprofits in our community who are working, trying to help our children and trying to make sure that they have a place to go when they get out of school. I was very instrumental in the Lucille Gorham Center, and that is continuing. It has not been all glory. We have had to fight, but because we feel the university has tried to encroach and they don't want to, they want to put who they want to there, but we just can't let that happen. It is a community center, and that's community, our community. We deserve that center, and the monies were put into that center with donation money and some city money, but we cannot let anyone come in and take over. Everybody says that ECU is trying to take over. Well, they probably are, but they will not do it as long as there is breath in my body.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Candidate Reeves, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement, starting now.
Mr. Cherry, council, all citizens, thank you for having us here tonight. I'm very pleased to be here. Like I said, I grew up across the street. I'm honored to be here. I love this city so much, the district. And I'll tell you, you know, when I was in the military, I spent 20 years in the military, spent about 7 years outside the United States, had a number of nominative assignments. And what I found in all those assignments, even in the Middle East, in a combat zone, is that you have to serve people. And I love serving people. I had a great opportunity to spend 4 years almost at an international airport. I was hand-selected to go to Seattle-Tacoma Airport. I left for Europe, went to Seattle-Tacoma, worked with passengers in military families, USO, emergency conditions all throughout the world for nearly 4 years. I can remember we evacuating people from areas that you don't know anything about. When they landed and they saw my face or one of the member faces that served them, they said, thank you. Serving people is what I'm all about. Like I said, I grew up with a very bad speech impediment. My dad had no education, yet he raised 12 kids right across the street. And he ended up working for United States Senator John East for almost my childhood. You would never thought me, a young man that had a very bad speech impediment. We ended up spending 20 years in the military, retiring from the Pentagon, special duty at the White House, running for Congress, the U.S. Senate, and now an opportunity to be on the City Council to serve people. With your help, I will be the next voice on the Greenville City Council. And I'll make you one promise, that I won't let you down. And if I tell you I'm going to do it, I'll do it. You can ask anybody that know me. I may talk a lot, but if I give you my promise, you know that I'm going to take care of you. I'll fight for seniors, our veterans, military, homeless, and anyone else that want to come to me for help. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Candidate Reeves. This concludes our segment for District 2. Thank you, Councilmember Glover and Candidate Reeves.
Hello, my name is Candidate Ernest T. Reeves. I'm running for District 2 City Council here in the great city of Greenville, North Carolina. We just had a chance to participate in this great forum here put on by the fraternity and sororities here in the area, and it's a great opportunity for me to have participated. It was a very informative campaign event where all the candidates came out. What I enjoyed about the event is that they took the time to ask questions to all the candidates, and I'm most appreciative. My name is Ernest Reeves. I decided to run for District 2 City Council because I love the city, the people, the different neighborhoods, and I want to make a difference. I grew up right across the street from this great West Greenville gym. I was somewhat of a champion in bumper pool, and I always enjoy coming back to where I grew up at. And I'm very appreciative that Awesome Radio has given me an opportunity to just let you know a little bit about me. You can reach me at ernestreeves.com. I'm asking for your vote right now through 1 November during the early voting period, and again on November the 5th. Again, my name is Ernest Reeves, running for Greenville City Council District 2, and I'm running to be your next voice at the Greenville City Council. God bless you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rose Glover, and I am at the Candidates Forum that was held by the Deltas and the the NPHC and Democracy North Carolina, and it was a great candidates forum. Good questions were asked and good answers were given, and we just want to thank them for allowing us to participate and having candidates forums, because this is how we really get to know our candidates. I look terrible today because I just came in from polling. I've been out all day since 9 o'clock this morning, going to homes and knocking on doors and talking to the constituents of District 2. I've served District 2. This year is 20 years. And I know the people in District 2, I know the needs, and we are fighting hard to make sure that those things that we need in our community are done. It's never too late to do what we have to do or we should do for our poor community. So I appreciate being here tonight, and I appreciate the ones who put it on tonight, and I appreciate all the candidates that was here. Have a good evening. My name is Rose Glover, and I'm running for City Council, District 2. Thank you very much for re-election.
Next, we have our candidates for the at-large seat. The two candidates for the at-large seat will be given a collective 30 minutes. Please welcome Councilmember Brian Meyerhofer and candidate Jermaine McNair. Councilmember Meyerhofer, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement starting now.
How's everybody doing? Thank you for coming out. Appreciate the time, appreciate the opportunity. Mr. Cherry and the Panhellenic Association, it's funny that a couple of years ago, this was the very first forum that I did. And I remember being all nervous and sweating, and I was like, oh, man, this is my first time talking in front of all these people, so feel a little bit better about it this time. My name is Brian Meyerhofer. I'm the at-large representative on the Greenville City Council. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm 42 years old, going to be 43 tomorrow. I am married to my wife, Sandra. I have a little 5-year-old little boy named Connor who just started kindergarten. I'm a 1999 graduate of ECU. Then I went up to law school in Baltimore, graduated from there in 2002. Then moved down to Washington, D.C., practiced law down there for about a decade, then went down to Atlanta and practiced law down there for a little while, and decided that I'd had enough of that, and I needed to come back to Greenville. Gave me an opportunity to come back here and fall in love with the city for a second time. I was really fascinated by the growth of a city. I've lived in small cities and big cities, multiple countries. I grew up a military brat, but nothing ever really grabbed me and felt like home like Greenville did. A couple of things that I'm really proud of that we've done so far in the City Council. I sat here before the Panhellenic Association 2 years ago, and I said one of the things we wanted to focus on was have less people making a minimum wage and more people making a living wage. And I'm really proud of the fact that in the past 2 years we've seen record low unemployment. We've really put forth work into economic development. The city is a leader with the Economic Development Alliance. It's going to help recruit more better paying jobs. And we actually just found out today the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina just certified our sites here in North Carolina. So we're going to be one of the few sites listed in North Carolina where a business will see our name and want to move. So very, very good day. Pretty good 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyerhofer. Candidate McNair, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement, starting now.
Thank you, and thank everyone for being here. My name is Jermaine McNair, and I grew up in this neighborhood as one of the young, forgotten people in our community. I played basketball here in this gym under Travis Clemens. I got into the pitfalls and all the trouble of a forgotten community. I survived through that, and as I began to figure out how to make my life move forward, I made my mother a promise. Because my mother always said that this city was filled with local leaders who used to stand up on the news, get accolades, and be celebrated, and she always wondered why they would pass by the young guys on the corner that we knew were in trouble, probably selling drugs or into everything else. And I promised her that I would build a life, but not only build a life, I would not pass by the young people in our community. So I invested in our community. I began serving, not just as an individual. I had the opportunity to not only raise my daughter, graduate from Rose High, Pitt Community College, East Carolina University, working on just finishing up second degree, studying sociology to address the issues and disparities here. But I began building outreach and partnership initiatives, working for years with our local educators, working with our healthcare professionals, working with our local law enforcement to address the disparities in our communities. And while the rest of Greenville is experiencing this increase in jobs, how many of you know that the 5 census tracts that make up West Greenville are all experiencing unemployment ranging from 13 to 35%? There is a lopsided growth here, and it's time for us to address it and bring a balanced community voice to City Council so that we all can grow together and stop celebrating numbers that the reality is our community cannot see.
Thank you, Candidate McNair. The first question is from the audience and reads as follows. The Board of Elections made a mistake concerning this race. Would you be willing to support the person who gets the most votes in this race regardless of who wins? Candidate McNair.
So the thing that I struggle with, first of all, I would absolutely support that. I put myself in that gentleman's shoes, and I never knew him up until he announced his candidacy. But I put myself in his shoes. Had I put my time, my money, my family, my reputation out there, and had a line drawn that totally removed me from the race, I don't even know what I would feel like. But the greater detriment is that I'm troubled that we are viewing this like this is news. This is not news. This is an attack on our civic processes. And I don't think not only him, but every city council member, every candidate, and every citizen should be speaking out against that, because we have to inform our state on how we want to be governed, not allow them to inform us and control our processes.
Thank you, Candidate McNair. Councilmember Meyerhofer, your response to the question.
First of all, I think it's a travesty what happened. It's a shame that the Board of Elections made such an egregious error with the zoning there and making sure that they have the candidates in the right district. I actually told Mr. Landrine, I went up to him and told him myself, I said, I think it's terrible what happened to you. It's a shame. I feel really bad. I don't think it would be appropriate for me to, in an ongoing election, to say I would support one candidate over another or anything like that. But ultimately, I think what has to happen is that there needs to be, this happened because of an audit. Well, I think maybe we need to audit how we do our audits so that it doesn't happen again.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyerhofer. Next question. Describe yourself and how you think the city can benefit from your leadership. We'll begin with you, Councilmember Meyerhofer.
I think it's not a long track record, but I've got a couple of years up there, and I'm really proud of the progress that we made. I mean, I think I would stand behind every vote. Not that you would agree with every single vote that I've made, but I think what's really important is being knowledgeable about every issue that comes before us. And I think that one thing I never want anybody to be able to say about me is that I wasn't prepared. So if you have an issue that comes before us, I want you to know and trust that I'm going to do everything I can to read everything about that issue. And at the end of the day, I will be able to provide a rational explanation for why I went one way or another on an issue. Because I think the worst thing you can do is have people making decisions that are uninformed. So whether or not you've agreed with some of my votes or disagreed with some of my votes, I think I'd be happy to talk to anybody anytime about those, because I feel confident that I can provide a rational basis for why I chose one decision over another. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyerhofer. Candidate McNair, your response to the question.
So I think the council would benefit in multiple ways from having me present. One way would be our council needs a balanced community voice. Currently, we're being dominated by a one-dimensional kind of capital investment in our communities, which we need. But we need to teach and understand that capital investment can work with community investment. But someone has to stand there and be that community voice. The other piece is initiative. I see our council kind of carrying on the legacy of past councils, carrying forward the work, but I don't see any transformative initiatives being brought forth to address disparities, build smart progress, or bring that progress into our communities in a manner that allows our community residents to shape their own economic, social, and cultural environments in a manner that's most meaningful for them. We will be able to support those community residents with the kind of programming that they need. That's what will be different.
Next question reads as follows: what will the certification as a site for economic development mean for the minority community? And what is your plan to include more minorities in growth? We'll begin with you, candidate McNair.
So for me, it's kind of just what we just said. There is a strategy called micro-development that is intended to go into communities that are surrounding our center cities. All of these communities have unique characteristics. Our Trina area that is neglected, our area north of the river that is neglected, West Greenville, and then the Dickinson Avenue extension all the way up. They have unique characteristics that micro-development allows you to go in, capture the unique qualities of that neighborhood, support that with infrastructure that allows each community to shape their own economic futures. The beauty of that is that would allow those communities to shine and thrive in a manner that would allow greater Greenville to achieve something that we have always been lacking: identity. That would make us the next destination city, but we can't get there with this one-dimensional capital development. We have to have our communities participate in the growth. We have got to grow together.
Thank you, candidate McNair. Councilmember Meyerhofer.
I actually mentioned that in my opening statement. That's really big news for Greenville because we didn't have this, our name wasn't included. So when a company wants to move to North Carolina, they see a list of these certified sites, and we were not on it. It's actually a shame that this didn't happen, a decade ago, maybe 2 decades ago, but we are now on this list. So when a company thinks about coming to North Carolina, they will now see Greenville, North Carolina on the map. In terms of minority hiring, I think one of the things that I'd like to see happen, and I actually mentioned this on a different project, but love to see job fairs set up. If and when a new company comes to that new certified site, have job fairs set up in the minority communities. My expectation is that a big company that's going to move to Greenville on one of these certified sites is going to create 200, 300, 500 jobs. I mean, what would that do for this community? So putting a job fair in some of the areas that most need, have the most residents needing employment, I think that would be huge. And I think that's one way to ensure that you give everybody the opportunity to benefit from a new company moving to Greenville. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyerhofer. Next question. In August, Greenville Police Chief Holtzman issued a request to change the city's ordinance for persons who were blocking sidewalks and refusing to move from issuing civil citations to a Class 3 misdemeanor punishable by a $100 fine. Explain your support or opposition to the proposed change. Councilmember Meyerhofer.
Thank you. Actually, I'm not exactly sure where I stand on it, to be honest with you. I think one of the things that it was proposed by the chief in a workshop, but one of the things that was discussed in that workshop is that there's actually a bill, I believe in the State House, where they can eliminate the ability from a local municipality to make a civil ordinance a criminal offense. So I think there's some state law to work out there. In terms of get that out of the way, eliminate any reference to the states eliminating the ability to do that. I think one of the things that I'd have to do is talk to some more stakeholders. I actually talked to many of the bar owners uptown, and they were actually against that ordinance as well. So I think it's just a matter of getting community input and ultimately deciding how we want to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyerhofer. Candidate McNair, your response.
So we're scapegoating our community members. That is what many people would call an acute reaction to a chronic problem. as a dad, I take my daughter out for daddy-daughter date nights. And the problem, one of the issues in Greenville is that once it starts to get dark, everywhere around Greenville starts to get pitch black. There's only one place in our city that's lit up and welcoming, and that's Uptown Greenville. So what that is a big giant sign over that 1 block radius that's pulling everybody that way, creating an unmanageable crowd that if any other business owner, if that was a club itself, they would be shut down for poor management because you can't manage that crowd. But rather than support some of the other communities and relieve some of that cultural pressure, we go down with more policing and arrest more people. The same people that we're driving down, not only is that hurting our community members, but that's hurting the businesses who are down there needing diverse professional investment while we continue to build university student housing and attract all of that complicated nightlife down there that we cannot manage.
Thank you, Candidate McNair. Next question is from the audience and reads as follows. What is your plan for creating more jobs for minority youth in West and South Greenville so that they will not attempt to make money in other negative ways? We'll begin with you, Candidate McNair.
So what's interesting is that we've been working on some of these issues for a while. In fact, we just launched a first source hiring initiative with our area's largest employer, Vidant Health, that removes employment barriers from the hiring process. The interesting thing is that the case studies that I drew that from other cities around the nation, when you look at those first source hiring initiatives, like the one that was done in California with LAX and other cities, those kinds of deals were brokered by city council members. But yet here it has required small, flexible organizations to get that done because we have lacked that attention and commitment to our communities from our city council.
Thank you, Candidate McNair. Councilmember Meyerhofer.
I've mentioned some of this already. I mean, I've been on city council less than 2 years, but we've made historic commitments to economic development, to job growth. We've never had an economic development alliance that like we finally have here. We've had so many different organizations operating in silos. Nobody had a cohesive voice. So what the city has done and what's happened as one of our main biggest initiatives was this Economic Development Alliance. So we're all essentially rowing the boat in the same direction. That's going to be huge for our ability to recruit business to Greenville. When is the last time a big business came to Greenville? Does anybody know? Long, long time ago. So obviously what we were doing wasn't working, and that's why that was one of our biggest initiatives to take care of that Economic Development Alliance. I've already mentioned the certified site. Never happened in the city, in the history of the city of Greenville. It just got certified today. And I also mentioned this already, job fairs, targeted job fairs where everybody in the community has an opportunity to meet face-to-face with an employer. I think that's one of the biggest ways to get your foot in the door for new employment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyerhofer. Next question is from the audience. It's directed towards Candidate McNair. It reads as follows. How would you work with the current mayor if he is re-elected to make changes that benefit West Greenville?
Well, I've had a long-standing relationship with our local mayor. I actually knew him before he made it to city council. And again, it would be that balanced community voice. I call him Mayor Conley or PJ, but one of the things I appreciate about PJ is that he's a brilliant mathematician. He can look at projects and see the numbers and break them down, but my challenge would be that you can't take communities and break them down by the numbers. You can't treat our communities like a math problem. Although we need that in order to protect our bottom line, if there's not a balanced community voice that could accentuate that, rather than members of council that will just toe the line, then you can't have that added value to that great math and that great acumen about city building and things. So I believe it's a necessary thing, and I would certainly add that, should I get that seat.
Thank you, Candidate McNair. The next question is from the audience. It's directed toward you, Councilmember Meyerhofer. It reads as follows. Who is in the Economic Development Alliance? And is it a diverse coalition?
I don't get the PJ question. I hate that guy. I'm just kidding. I don't know every name that's involved with the Economic Development Alliance, and I wasn't involved with selecting every member. My hope is that it includes people from all throughout our 5 districts. I think that's going to be very important in terms of getting everybody involved and a voice involved in terms of who's going to be helping to secure voices that get to talk to these companies when they get here. And like I said, I'm going to repeat this again. Once we get a company here, if and when we get a company here, we need to do targeted job fairs. I think that's going to be something that's huge. And I can't tell you the name of every single person that's involved with the Economic Development Alliance. I'm sure that's online somewhere, though. Sorry, I couldn't be more detailed, whoever asked that question.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyerhofer. Next question. Considering the City of Greenville's mission statement directly mentions open, inclusive community, how do you respond to concerns of Black ECU students being turned away from nightclubs in Uptown? We'll begin with you, Candidate McNair.
Again, I mean, these are tough questions with tough answers, but we've got to be honest. We have been playing into the hands of and catering to the same money pockets for years. You don't look at an unbalanced, one-dimensional growth and just think that that's the way it has to be. The job of council is to guide that growth so that it actually intentionally benefits and connects with all community members. When you see a job that's balanced and one-sided, it's for a reason. So again, it goes back to what I said before. If we won't invest in any other communities and create any other cultural offerings, when this downtown is the only one-block radius, not where Greenville comes, but almost the entire east. But we know that those businesses don't really want, there was one that actually went on the record to say they didn't want natives here. They built that business to cater to the ECU students. So that type of what we would call discrimination has long since existed, and it would take council and leadership that's willing to stand up, not and be bullies, but stand up and work with our local business owners to build an inclusive city.
Thank you, Candidate McNair. Councilmember Meyerhofer, your response.
I think one of the first things I would want to do is shine the light on that business. I mean, if in fact, to find out if in fact they are discriminating. I mean, I think that's one way to out somebody. I mean, get it out in the open. If they're the ones doing it, I think if and when something like that were to happen, I bet they would see a hell of a lot less money coming into their coffers, and I would assume that they would not want that to happen. Listen, I don't go out uptown really that much anymore, but I will say, I mean, I've been up to the Still Life rooftop a few times. I've seen a very diverse crowd up there. Now, does that mean that applies to every single group uptown? Of course not. I mean, the last thing I want is to have anybody in our community not feel welcome. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys know this. I mean, I'm the director of immigration at ECU. I mean, I've been doing immigration law since 2003. I mean, my very profession my one and only profession that I've ever had deals with multiculturalism and dealing with people from all different cultures, backgrounds, races, religions from all over the world. So, I mean, the last thing I want to see on my watch is anybody not feeling welcome anywhere in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyerhofer. Next question is from the audience, and it reads as follows. The City of Greenville moves its lines and creates an ETJ area, but the officials of the city will not address issues of the ETJ. Why isn't the city doing something for the ETJ area? Candidate McNair.
So, as I am not a city official, but I've served in this community and had multiple conversations with our local service providers. I've talked with fire rescue and EMT, and they are already existing in a black hole, meaning they're losing staff while, let's take fire and rescue for an example. You typically need a fire station in a truck for every 10,000 residents. As we are about at 100,000, we have 6 fire stations, trying to work on the 7th, but we're still adding more to the ETJ. While we continue to expand them and run those staffers crazy and continue to lose staff, we're continuing to expand their radius and forcing them to carry more calls. But that's a host of issues in there that we really have to be honest about. And again, stop celebrating just the numbers and the capital growth and really get into what our city is supposed to be doing, which is called smart growth that preserves, protects our public good while we manage a growth that we all benefit from.
Thank you, Candidate McNair. Your response, Councilmember Member Meyerhofer.
It's almost a purgatory, I get that. I mean, I don't love it. I'd be fine if we eliminated the extraterritorial jurisdiction. I think we need to really make clearly defined lines. I mean, we saw what happened with some election lines in a different race there. I get it. I think if anybody's in the ETJ, what I would say is reach out to me, reach out to the representatives. I know we can find a solution. If you feel like you're missing out on a service and you live in an ETJ, there's a way we can communicate and coordinate with all the surrounding municipalities to see how we can satisfy and serve the needs of the people in those ETJs. But listen, I don't love it. I would love I would love them to be clearly defined in one municipality or another. But until we get there, until that day arrives, I think what we have to do is, we can't help you if you don't reach out. So if you have an issue with a service in an ETJ, let us know, because I promise you we will do everything we can to get everything worked out for you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyerhofer. Many community members have called for the city to establish a civilian police review board to oversee allegations of officer misconduct. There are hundreds of review boards throughout this nation, including multiple cities in the state of North Carolina. Is there a need for a civilian police review board here in the city of Greenville? Councilmember Meyerhofer.
Yeah, that's come up to City Council a few times, so I honestly didn't know much about it until about a year ago. So I did a lot of research on this, and what I found was in many municipalities, it's a great idea that the citizens think is going to be awesome, and ultimately it turns out to be a dud. From what I understand, I've talked to people that represent communities that have these police civilian review boards, and basically the citizens ultimately found they just came to be rubber stamps of whatever the police decision was. They ultimately turn out to be a drain on time, a drain on resources. They don't have any impact with the police department. And then I think it's a stretch to think that any of us have the ability to play Monday morning quarterback with what happens with the police. I mean, I'm a lawyer. I took criminal law. I have no business playing Monday morning quarterback to figure out whether or not an officer made a right decision in a stressful situation. Moreover, we have to have the resources of people to serve on this board. In Greenville right now, we have about 22 boards, and we have multiple openings because we cannot get citizens to fill these boards. And this would just add another where we're fighting to find citizens to serve. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyerhofer. Candidate McNair, your response to the question.
So the problem with that answer is that our citizens have nowhere else to go. See, we're elected to represent them. It's not always about what we want as individuals or what we think is logical. And I think sometimes our city has not liked the message or the messenger that has brought that. But the reality is there's a truth at the core of that request. And I'll be honest, I wouldn't care if my citizens came and asked for a knitting club. If that's a way that they want to get engaged and be more tied in with their city, I'm going to help to do that. And with my last few seconds, I just want to explain to you guys that, do you realize that right now, if you file an internal affairs report with your police department, they go through the investigation. After of course, you've handed your trust over to them. Do you know at the end of that investigation, you get a letter in the mail that says, we have completed your investigation. We want you to know that the investigation is complete. Thank you, have a good day. You get no information about whether your claims were founded or anything, and you're left in the dark. We absolutely need transparency, and we need to work with our citizens to get there.
Thank you, Candidate McNair. Next question. The city of Greenville hired a firm to conduct a study on student housing in Greenville in 2017. The study revealed the vacancy rate at student-targeted communities was 11.6%. More than double the 5% vacancy rate considered to be healthy for student housing. Additionally, the study described the student housing market as saturated past healthy standards and headed towards further saturation. Respond to the results of this study. Councilmember Meyerhofer.
The question is response to that study from a couple of years ago?
Yes.
I assume it's accurate. As long as I've been on the city council, we've not approved any further student housing. So I'm actually not in favor of there being any more student housing, and I ultimately think the market will take care of itself, because listen, if you have those numbers and I have those numbers, banks have those numbers, and you know what banks aren't going to do? Lose money. So they're not going to loan out money to have anybody else build another student housing complex if there isn't the demand for that. There was actually a student housing complex that was planned to be put down on Charles Boulevard, and they pulled out because the demand wasn't there. So what I'd like to see is more market rate housing. I certainly would be in favor of approving that, but as far as I'm concerned, we have enough student housing. That's not anything that's going to be approved by me and has not been approved by me, and probably won't be needed or necessary for many, many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyerhofer. Candidate McNair, your response to the question.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry, my answers are a little dicey tonight, but the market can't take care of us. The market is what has our young men filling up for-profit prisons right now. The market is what has the path of progress leaving our communities, because the number one rule in business, the number 3 rules are location, 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 which is code for don't be anywhere where the growth is not there. The market only takes care of itself. And let me explain to you what happens with student housing. This is how the market takes care of itself. The developer goes in, builds the student housing. He sells it, so he makes his money because the market said it could be there. The next person moves in, they get to write off a certain portion of the vacancies on their taxes. So the market takes care of them. It's not until the next person comes in about 5 to 10 years later that they're stuck with those vacant spaces that the market didn't take care of, and then they have to drop the prices, and then it becomes a center of issues that now the city has to come back and pay for later. And while we're dealing with this revenue neutral budget, that's what I would call a hidden tax that our community members continue to have to pay for.
Thank you, Candidate McNair. Candidate McNair, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement starting now. Yes.
I thank you all for being here. I'm going to defer from talking more about myself and really just issue a call to action to our community. If you guys go to the polls and hang out for about 30, 40 minutes, you'll see carloads of young students coming in to vote blindly to keep the status quo in place at the direction of their landlords and landowners. And this is what's happening. But I'm not here to actually pick that type of fight. The thing that I'm disappointed about is that, in a sense, and I know we need our forms, but while they're lining people up to the polls, we're still auditioning for our community to figure out what we're going to do. I need for every person in here that's a part of any sort of group, any sort of church organization, to organize, forget partisan, forget vote for Jermaine McNair. That machine that's controlling our elections has nullified our community's true voice. If you don't get people to the polls to just vote, that's the only way we can fight this. So please, I implore you, work within your organizations, work within your community members, become a captain, take charge of commitment and say, I will get 25, 30 people to the polls. But let's have our forums, but let's also mobilize and allow our community to get its voice back, because we have absolutely lost it and we have got to have it. Thank you. My name is Jermaine McNair. I'm running for City Council at large. Let's grow together, y'all.
Thank you, Candidate McNair. Councilmember Meyerhofer, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement, beginning now.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair and the Panhellenic Association. It's not lost on me that this is a very West Greenville-centric forum this evening. So I want everybody to know that I actually used to live in West Greenville. I have a lot of love and appreciation for West Greenville. I think the beauty of West Greenville and the problems of West Greenville are that it is one of our oldest communities. And what happens when you have such an old community? It takes more effort, more resources, and more money. Ultimately, I want to make sure that we have resources dedicated over here. I've always worked with Ma Rose, and I will with Councilmember Daniels as well, to make sure that we're taking care of this area. One of the things I'm very proud of is that we dedicated extra funding to help the field right here and help the Jackie Robinson League. I've been a big supporter of the Jackie Robinson thing. I think that's great for our future, great for our youth. These might be the kids that are in high school with my kid one day. I actually advocated to have the Jones Lee historic home moved over to West 5th, but I was told they couldn't handle the railroad tracks moving that old house. It probably wasn't going to make it. As far as I'm concerned, we've had a pretty good 2 years. That doesn't mean we're there yet. We still need to work on our infrastructure. We still need to work on economic development. I've heard a lot of conversation. I'm actually glad I showed up here at 6 o'clock tonight because there's so much conversation about affordable housing. Well, one way you make housing more affordable is to give everybody better paying jobs. And like I said 2 years ago, I want to see less people making a minimum wage and more people making a living wage. And one way you do that is to get more better paying jobs here. And we have taken historic strides to do that here in Greenville. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Brian Meyerhofer. I'm on the Greenville City Council, and however this turns out, if I'm fortunate enough to win, I want you guys to know you can reach out to me anytime. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This concludes tonight's segment for the at-large seat. Thank you, Councilmember Meyerhofer and candidate McNair.
Hi, my name is Jermaine McNair. I am your candidate for City Council at Large for the City of Greenville. I am running on a platform that will allow us to grow together. When I say grow together, we are experiencing growth right now, but it's one-dimensional growth. It is growth that is buildings, bank investment, but not investment in our most critical asset that our community has, our people. We have neighboring communities around our urban core, our uptown Greenville, that have unique characteristics, unique identities, that we need unique community-based, balanced community voice that can tap into these communities, capture the unique essence, the unique qualities, the unique skills that live inside these communities, and empower our local communities to shape their own economic future, to shape their own cultural, social, and economic environments. And the only way we will be able to do that is if we have leadership that is connected to the community. I have served in our community for years. I have worked across multiple divides, multiple sectors, spent years working with our local education systems, our local healthcare systems, our local criminal justice systems, advocating for our young people, our parents, and those that serve our communities from top to bottom. And I've been able to design integrative programming that have allowed us in these communities where our disparities are highest to come together for solutions. And right now, as we are facing this economic boom, I believe that when the 2020 census comes back, we will have hit a threshold that is going to open us up to a new wave of outside investment, that if we don't get past some of these divides that are ripping across our community, we're going to get hit with development that we have no plan for, no ability to engage with, and no ability to guide that for smart growth that can nurture our future, nurture our families, and nurture our identity, making Greenville the next destination city. When I say grow together, I mean grow together for all parts. Vote Jermaine McNair for City Council at Large, Greenville. Thank you.
We have our candidates for the Greenville mayor's seat. The three candidates for mayor will be given a collective of 30 minutes. Please join me in welcoming Mayor P.J. Connolly and candidates Renee Boston Hill and Demetrius Hicks. Mayor Connolly, you have 2 minutes to provide your opening statement, starting now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is P.J. Connolly. I'm the mayor of the city of Greenville. I'll give you a little background about myself. I'm originally from Wisconsin. I came to Greenville about 16 years ago to play baseball at East Carolina University. I played baseball for 2 years, ended up getting a finance degree, and left and played professional baseball for a couple years. After I hurt my shoulder, I came back to Greenville because I knew Greenville was always a community that I wanted to be at. I always wanted to be here because the people were so welcoming and so friendly when I first came to Greenville, and I knew that I wanted to be able to raise a family. It also helped that I had a beautiful woman that was waiting here for me, who happens to be my wife right now, who we married in 2008. We have 2 beautiful little girls. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I love the city. The city is an incredible place. I've been very, very blessed to be able to own a business here, raise a family here, and now be the mayor. Back in 2015, I had the opportunity to be able to run for city council, and I served 2 years on the Greenville City Council representing District 5. When our former mayor, Alan Thomas, stepped down, I just felt like it was the right time for somebody like myself to step in and it's been an absolute honor and pleasure to be able to serve the citizens of Greenville over the last 2 years. I thought that Greenville needed a few certain things that we needed to focus on to be able to get us to the next level running for office, and some of those things where I felt like we needed to bring jobs to our community. We needed to make sure that we're working on our infrastructure. We need to make sure that Greenville was a safe place. We also need to make sure that Greenville was a fun place to be, so we need to focus on quality of life. I feel like over the last 2 years we've done a lot to grow our community and bring it in the right direction, but we do have a lot of work that's left to be done. And I hope that the citizens of Greenville have seen the great progress that has been made over the last 2 years and understand that with another term I'll be able to make additional improvements with the council and move our city forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Connolly. Candidate Boston Hill, you have 2 minutes to provide your opening statement, starting now.
Hello. Good evening, everyone, and I want to thank everyone for allowing us this opportunity to present our positions and what we see as a new city for Greenville. I moved here, I would say, over 12 years ago from New York, a big city, and I visited Greenville about 15 years ago, and it was something about Greenville that I said, I like it, I want to be here, and my husband and I, we decided to purchase a home blindly and just move here without any family, without any concerns. So what I've seen over the past 12 years is that the things that attracted me to come to Greenville, I see them leaving and not being there. I feel that the warmth and the closeness and the growth that I was seeing, I see that I'm not being included. So my thing is that there's so much going all around the world that you can be in complaint or you can decide to do something about it. So I decided to run for mayor because I felt that I could do something to make all of us feel a part of. So I'm taking on this task. No one has started or been a mayor before, so I feel that I have the ability to want to serve the people because I feel the people of Greenville need to have a leader of passion.
Thank you, Candidate Boston Hill. Candidate Hicks, you have 2 minutes to provide your opening statement, starting now.
Well, thank you everybody for being here, first of all. It's truly an honor to be here to speak before you all tonight. So I was raised here in Greenville. I was born and raised here, actually, and I lived here most of my life. I also lived in Washington, D.C., as well as Baltimore, Maryland. I moved back down here in 2017, and people, they keep asking me over and over again, they say, why didn't you take the traditional route before you decided to run for mayor? Serve on a city board, then run up to city council, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the reason I decided to run for mayor is because that really we have such limited time before automation sets in, as well as climate change, the climate crisis that we're participating or anticipating in the next 11 years. I believe that our city needs to begin to prepare for these two converging events, and I believe that I'm best prepared to do that because I'm well-read, I'm well-versed on things, and I actually have a genuine care for making our world a better place. And when our city, when it comes down to the next 11 years, one of our biggest industries that people don't really realize is that it's retail. And when automation sets in, that means that we have about 8,000 jobs that may potentially go away over the next few decades. So I would like for us to actually think about how can we bring better jobs here, and I believe those could be green jobs, bus manufacturers, they could be wind turbine manufacturers, et cetera, but also not just taking a traditional route of economic development, but also encouraging worker cooperatives here, because a lot of people, they want to be business owners, but unfortunately they never have the capital to do it. So if we can go about creating worker cooperatives and where we negotiate a relationship between ECU and Vidant that they can provide certain services to our worker cooperatives, then we can possibly spread out community wealth a bit more than a traditional approach that we have today. So that's the reason why I'm running for mayor for it, just to really renegotiate things and rechange the narrative of how we go about development and safety in our city. It's really easy just to say, add more police officers and that's how we deal with safety, but we have to really address the issues of why people are committing crimes in the first place. So I really do appreciate you all being here, and I look forward to answering some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Hicks. The next question reads as follows. The fate of our climate is threatening our planet and the future of our children. In what ways do you think Greenville could be ambitious with mitigating our carbon footprint and be an example for other small cities to be more sustainable? We'll begin with you, candidate Boston Hill.
All right. Well, one of the things that I've been seeing, and that how we can improve the quality of life for everyone and also the environment, is looking how we move around the city. I feel that if we were to take time and to look and to see that we have a lot of transportation, we have a lot of streets that are very crowded, and I believe that a mass transit system is something that could be very effective in terms of mobility and people being able to get to jobs and also being able to clean the environment with less cars on the road.
Thank you, candidate Boston Hill. Mayor Connolly, your response.
I think one of the things that we could do as far as the carbon footprint is concerned is continue to make an emphasis on consolidation of our bus services. One of the things that we had talked about a couple of meetings ago was potentially partnering with East Carolina University, partnering with Vidant Medical Center, and some of the other transportation companies throughout our area and potentially offer more services. But also, in addition to that, I think it's important that we have multi-modes of transportation, which is something that we've been working very hard on over the last couple of years to continue to grow our bike lanes, to grow our sidewalks and our greenway system, to make sure that people have alternate modes of transportation throughout our community. So I think we need to continue to do that, continue to invest in that, and understand that not everybody has the luxury of having a vehicle, but we need to make sure that we have the necessary infrastructure for them to be able to get to employment, get to the doctor, or anywhere they need to go throughout the community.
Thank you, Mayor Connolly. Candidate Hicks, your response to the question.
I think it's easy for people to assume that we just need to put up more electric cars on the road in order to mitigate the effects of the climate crisis, but I think that's an easy approach and an easy way just to go about things. But really what we need to do is encourage more mixed-use development so that people can live closer to job centers. And we have, grocery stores, schools, et cetera, nearby, so they can walk to work, they can bike to work, and things of that nature. But also, as both candidates said, rebuilding our great bus system up and merging them together, I think that's a great approach. But also, we need to advocate to the federal government in order to build more climate mitigation infrastructure altogether. Right now, we look at north of the river, and if we do nothing as a planet, north of the river may be gone in the next 80 years, which is, something that we don't really think about too often, and, we may think that it's far outside of our lifetime, but we have to do something about that. So advocating to the federal government in order to spend those funds or monies in order to build that climate mitigation infrastructure is incredibly important for the future of our city. Otherwise, we're doomed to failure.
Thank you, candidate Hicks. Next question. The Board of Elections made a mistake concerning this race. Would you be willing to support the person who gets the most votes in this race regardless of who wins? We'll begin with you for all to respond. We'll begin with you, Mayor Connolly.
I think you're referring to the issue with District 2, but I think that there was a mistake that was made with the Board of Elections. Of course, that doesn't have anything to do with the city of Greenville, but I think we owe it to the citizens to do what's best for the community. I think if that individual does get the most votes in the election, I think we owe it to that citizen, as long as they meet the qualifications to be able to serve the city, then that's what we would do. I think, I personally feel that the person was harmed in a negative manner, and I don't think it's fair for somebody that went through the process and did everything that they were supposed to do. So the person that does get the most votes, in my opinion, should be able to serve in that capacity.
Thank you, Mayor Connolly. Candidate Boston Hicks, your response.
Well, I feel that, of course I feel that it's an unjust that someone who's tried and worked and was put out there and encouraged to run, that now they find out that they could possibly not be qualified because they're living not in the district. I think that it's, we can say that, well, if he gets the most votes, would I support him? Well, yes, I would support his candidacy in the election. However, I don't get to make that decision. It's made at the Board of Elections, and if they say he cannot be qualified, then we're having a conversation that we cannot support.
Thank you, candidate Boston Hill. Candidate Hicks, your response to the question.
I won't really give a long-winded response to it. Yes, I believe that whoever wins the majority of votes should be able to sit on city council, and I think it's pretty much that simple.
Thank you, candidate Hicks. Next question. There is an affordable housing crisis in our city. How can we ensure development is reignited so that housing is accessible for marginalized communities? In what ways do you plan to drive equity and ownership within these communities? We'll begin with you, candidate Hicks.
So yes, this is actually one of my favorite questions because we do have an affordability crisis, and when I lived in DC, I'm very versed on how expensive housing can be. So I believe that we need to have a non-traditional approach of how we go about it, which includes community land trust, where people will be able to own, or the community owns their land instead of developers or individuals, because I think too often we focus on just individual home ownership as opposed to how to get the community itself to bring itself up. I believe that we should have tiny homes in our city because those are more accessible. Right now, people can't afford to live in a house that's about $200,000 a year, so we need to have a different approach about how we build houses altogether. But even then, I would commit tax dollars towards building affordable housing if need be, because we can't neglect or abdicate our duty towards people being able to live in the homes. We don't want people to be homeless, and we don't want people to have 40–50% of their income going towards a rental, because that doesn't improve anybody's lifestyle. So I believe that's how we go about things. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Hicks. Candidate Boston Hill, your response to the question, please.
Well, one of the things that I did when I took on running for mayor is that I decided to go and to speak to the various departments. And in speaking, one of the questions when I said, well, we need more affordable housing, it was raised that investors don't like to build affordable housing because there's no money in it. And my thing is that, well, then how can we make it as an incentive that to say that we have these communities that not only have the $1 million homes, but they're mixed communities where everyone has and would want to have decent housing. I think that we need to find ways to if we're going to have these developers and investors come into our communities, then they need to be able to give back to the community.
Thank you, candidate Boston Hill. Mayor Connolly, your response to the question.
You know, affordable housing, I think it's a multi-pronged approach. You kind of have to look at it from both. I think the federal government right now provides $1.5 to $1.6 million in CDBG funds or home funds to the city of Greenville. So some of those funds have been used right now to rehabilitate some of the houses that are in West Greenville. Some of those funds are used to build new construction homes. But then also, you've got to look from the private sector standpoint. And I think everyone here can agree that we've got a tremendous amount of multifamily units as well in our community. And I think some of those need to be repurposed. You know, some of those units that were built many years ago may not be conducive for student housing living. And I think that's something we need to look in. I was just at a ribbon cutting recently over on Front Gate Drive. We had an investor that came in from Raleigh that purchased up 10 of those buildings over on Front Gate Drive. They've gone through and rehabbed every one of those buildings, and now they're offering one-bedroom apartments for $495 a month and two-bedroom apartments for $595 a month. You know, so what they've done is they've completely changed that area and created a better living style for people that want to live in affordable housing.
Thank you, Mayor Connolly. Next question. If elected, how would you reach out to constituents and let them know you are willing to hear and address their concerns? We'll begin with you, Mayor Connolly.
I think one of the things that I've prided myself on serving on the Greenville City Council and as the mayor is always being open and receptive. I'm always on my phone, which is probably not the best thing when you've got a family, but I'm always open to having meetings and discussions with people, because I think even if you don't agree with that person, it's important that you listen to them, because they might bring up something that's different. I can tell you, I've had the pleasure to be able to sit down and have forums with Mr. Hicks here, and I can tell you he and I probably are on the different spectrum politically, but you know, when we have conversations, there's some things that come up that I think are very, very intelligent. I think they're things that we as a city can really work on together. So I think as the mayor of the city, you need to be open and listening to everybody throughout the community and be able to be accessible to them. And anytime anybody wants to meet with me, they're welcome to. I enjoy meeting with citizens. I enjoy going to the schools and talking to the children, understanding what's important for them, and what's going to be something that's going to keep them into our community and be able to raise a family someday.
Thank you, Mayor Connolly. Candidate Hicks, your response.
So I think one of the problems that we have in our city is that a lot of young people really aren't involved in the democratic process or not really involved in how our city is shaped in the first place. So as PJ said, or the mayor said, we should definitely take more advantage of our cellular devices, in my opinion. And I believe that we should create a city app and where people could commit or comment on things that are going on within our own community so that they can say, hey, we need potholes filled, or we need to have new affordable housing, or et cetera, so we can have that real data available to us in order to fulfill their needs. But also just having community forums across the city, in parks and community centers and places such as that, so we can hear as many people as we can across our city. Because inviting people to city council or city hall is easy, but we need to be in our communities so we can hear the most people we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Hicks. Candidate Boston Hill, your response.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. How would you reach out to constituents to let them know you are willing to hear and address their concerns?
Well, as the mayor, one of the things that I feel as Greenville continues to grow is that the mayor should become a full-time position. And being a mayor for full-time, it would allow you to be available to people not only in the evening, but also during the day. I feel that, or not that I feel, that I know that as a mayor, we need to have town hall meetings because we go through the day and we have city councils, but we need to make sure that the leadership respects the people and that they, if they're going to have certain meetings, that they not only are available, but they stay to listen to the concerns and the issues of the people.
Thank you, Candidate Boston Hill. Next question. How would you support residents who need assistance to repair and maintain their homes? We'll begin with you, Candidate Boston Hill.
Well, the city council should be able to come together and to realize that there will be housing, there will be people who cannot afford to maintain and to keep up their housing. I feel that as a responsibility to the city, to the people of the city who's lived in the city, committed to the city, that we have a responsibility to take care of those people who may not be able to take care of their housing themselves. So we should have funds allocated, set aside objectively and fairly to make sure that the resources are available to those who need it.
Thank you, Candidate Boston Hill. Candidate Hicks, your response.
So I believe with our largest employers here in Greenville, Vidant, among other institutions, I believe that we should ask more of them, to be honest. Right now, we look at Vidant and ECU, they're both having housing prices go up a little bit, and across West Greenville in particular, but really across our city. So I believe that when it comes down to Vidant in particular, we should be asking them to contribute a little funds towards a housing fund so we can train people in their neighborhoods to upgrade their own housing. And I believe that if we do that, not only the city doesn't have to commit any tax dollars towards the process, but also the people of the neighborhood have a little bit more respect for their neighborhood because they actually help redevelop it. So I believe that's a different approach of how we can go about things in our city, is just really asking the private sector in some cases to have a little bit more responsibility of the effects that they have as they grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Hicks. Mayor Connolly.
I mentioned earlier we have a program that we receive federal funds from the federal government for the CDBG and home funds, and I think it's important that we utilize those dollars in the best manner possible because, to be honest with you, one of the things we always talk about is gentrification. I think that people always bring that word up and not really understand what that is. And I think it's important to understand that when you go in and you just bulldoze a neighborhood, you change the entire neighborhood. And some of the assets that we have in our community are some of the older homes that are family homes, that families have lived there for a long time. And be able to offer those dollars to be able to have somebody go in there and rehab them, maybe put in a new HVAC system, put on a new roof, or potentially go in there and abate lead-based paint inside there. That's something that we as a city can possibly do with those dollars that are given from the federal government. And I think that it's up to the city to utilize those dollars in the most appropriate manner and make sure that we're maximizing those dollars to help as many citizens as we possibly can.
Thank you, Mayor Connolly. Next question. In the event you are not elected, how will you continue to be an active member of the community? We'll begin with you, Candidate Hicks.
So yeah, in the event that I'm not elected, which I really hope that I am, but in the event that I'm not elected, I believe that we should re-engage the community as a whole and really try to create a movement here of people so that the city council can really hear our voices. And the unfortunate reality is that if I'm elected, or if Renee or even PJ is elected, we still have to rely on the community in order to get behind those projects that we want us to do. So really just building a movement up of people to, and you know, let me actually rewind a little bit. We need to come up with a list of things that we need, and one as a community, in order to address the historic inequalities that we have as a city, to be quite frank with you. So if we come up with that list of demands, I believe we can deliver it to City Hall, and from that point we can hold our leaders more accountable, pressure them in order to agree with the terms of that demand list, and you know, over the next 2 years, hopefully they will listen to it. So thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Hicks. Next, Mayor Connolly.
16 years ago when I moved to Greenville, I never had aspirations to be the mayor of the city. And I can tell you that if I were not elected as the mayor this next term, I think the most appropriate thing to do would be to help out with the transition. You know, I chose Greenville because I love Greenville. Greenville's a great community. I always wanted to raise my family here, own a business here, but I always wanted Greenville to be a great place that I want my kids to be proud to call home. So I would do everything in my power to be able to help that transition and make sure that it's a smooth process, because I want Greenville to be a beautiful place and to continue to grow and be a place that somebody else, maybe another kid from Wisconsin, may have an opportunity to come here and say, you know, I like Greenville, North Carolina, I want to stay here and raise a family here. So in the event that I were not elected, I'd love to help out with the transition to whoever was elected.
Thank you, Mayor Connolly. Candidate Boston Hill.
Well, I do plan on becoming the next mayor, so I'm going to live into that. But if I'm not elected, I will continue to do the service that I've been doing for the past, well, since I've been here for the past 12 years. Excuse me. I've done various projects working with children. I've done education with voters. I think it's very important that the educated voter is the empowered voter. So my service to the community will continue. I've had a radio show for quite a few years now, Politics Now, and with Renee Boston Hill, where I go in and I speak to the people via the media, letting them know what the opportunities are and how they need to get out and vote. I say whether you vote for me or vote for any of the candidates that are here, we put our hats in there because we want to do a better job for the city of Greenville. And I'm hoping that, you know, you understand that we must vote.
Thank you, Candidate Boston Hill. Next question. As mayor, what can you do to improve the quality of our public schools and impact teacher salaries to retain qualified teachers? We'll begin with you, Mayor Connolly.
That is tough. You know, as far as a funding standpoint, the city does very limited funding for the school system. One of the things that we have been able to fund is we created the red light camera system, which is on an annual basis right now is roughly providing about $1 million a year to the Pitt County school system, which is a good boost. But, you know, I think something that we could potentially do is help out with early education. I think it's very important that we get to children at an early age, that we make sure that we partner with READ ENC, which I've had a great partnership as the mayor so far, and, you know, make sure that we're getting to children and making sure that we're creating that great foundation for when they start to advance in the years, they're ready and prepared to be successful, because I think that's the most important thing, is that we're getting children at an early age and giving them the resources that they need to be successful.
Thank you, Mayor Connolly. Candidate Boston Hill, your response.
Well, I believe that right now we have great public school system here in Greenville. However, it is lacking in terms of in getting good teachers and retaining good teachers. I feel that as we start to pull away and we support funding to charter schools, then we're going to be moving away that money that could be used to help to grow the schools that our children are in. So I'm encouraged with the public schools. I'd like to find ways that we can stop to these charter schools that are taking monies away from the opportunities that all children could use.
Thank you. Candidate Boston Hill. Candidate Hicks.
I think one of the number one jobs of a mayor is to be not only a visionary, but an advocate. So I believe when it comes down to how we go about improving our school system, we have to advocate to the state in order to provide a little bit more funds. I just read a little earlier today that the Senate of North Carolina right now is actually considering another tax cut that the money could have possibly gone towards education. And right now, that's not the priority of our state. So if we had more advocates on a state level that are able to provide funding towards our school system, that'll be perfect. But in the meantime, what we can do is work with Pitt County Schools in order to possibly do a bond referendum to replace buildings. Right now, we need about $200 million worth of new buildings just to keep up with growth. And that's not even including like replacing buildings that are just aging. So that's how we'll go about it, just advocating to the state level, working with Pitt County Schools and working with the Pitt County government in order to increase school salaries, provide new buildings and things of that nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Hicks. Next question. Greenville made national news this year following a visit by President Donald Trump. As mayor, how would you intend to ensure all people who visit Greenville feel safe, welcome, no matter race, religion, or background? We'll begin with you, Candidate Boston Hill.
Oh, well, that's one of the reasons why I'm running for mayor. Because I feel that when we have leadership, local, state, and federal, supporting a system that says, "Oh, you're not welcome here," number one, it reminded me of my childhood. I remember going to high school as a 14-year-old, being bused or by the city buses in New York City into an area or into a school system where there was less than 3% black. And what they did every day was they chased us out of the schools, telling us that we're not welcome to go back where we came from. And when we have a president that comes to our city welcomely by our local, state, and federal leaders, cheering them on to send people back, then I feel that we are not safe, and we need to make sure that the leadership keeps all of us safe in our state and our city.
Thank you, Candidate Boston Hill. Mayor Connolly.
One of the first things that I did after the rally was we released a statement showing and telling everybody that Greenville does not condone hatred or any type of violence or any type of bigotry in our community. I think it's important that everybody understands that we as a community, if we're going to grow, we have to grow together. So myself and the city manager organized an event where we asked community leaders to come together and sit down and have constructive feedback. I know I've seen some community leaders here today that were at that meeting. And it's important to be able to sit down and have a dialogue and show. I'm a big advocate of, I think actions speak louder than words. I think it's important that you go out and show that you're a united community, and I think that we as a community need to continue to work on that and be able to show that we need to work together. If we want Greenville to move in the direction that we want it to move, we have to be able to be sitting down with each other and talking about collective action that will be able to show that Greenville is truly an inclusive community.
Thank you, Mayor Connolly. Candidate Hicks.
So yes, I believe with the rally that came here, I have some interesting thoughts on it. It was a reality check in some ways, but at the same time, it was also it kind of validated things to me in some ways, because I know that in our community we aren't as inclusive as we would like to portray ourselves to be. We need to have those hard conversations. I think it's real easy to say, that we're inclusive and that we're diverse and things of that nature. But that's really just lip service if we aren't really going into the communities to do the hard work of trying to remove biases, to get people to understand that people who are immigrants aren't enemies, things of that nature. So we just need to have those hard conversations in our city and really as a country in order to move forward. So thank you for that question, and I do look forward to hoping to solve some of those divides that we have in our city right now.
Thank you, Candidate Hicks. At this time, Candidate Hicks, you have 2 minutes to provide your closing statement starting now.
Well, again, thank you all for being here tonight, and I really have appreciated a lot of the questions that I've received tonight. As I've run for mayor of our city, I've noticed that we have a lot of work that we need to do in our city, and that's why, I named my campaign Greenville Works, because I want us to work on three things: jobs, justice, and the environment, and really reframing those three things all together, because too often when we think of jobs that bring in, $8 an hour, and that's not really acceptable anymore going forward in the future. When it comes down to justice, we think too often of police, and police just protecting us and all that. But what we really need to do is again, find ways to mitigate crime altogether and bring better jobs back into our community and really have a more focused approach on the environment. Our name is Greenville. Why aren't we having more green jobs here? Why aren't we having more environmental protections and things of that nature? So I really do appreciate you all coming out tonight, and that I hope that I can earn your vote. And I look forward to speaking to some of you all after this all concludes. Thank you all for being here again.
Thank you, Candidate Hicks. Candidate Boston Hill, you have 2 minutes to provide your closing statement, starting now.
Well, again, I'd like to thank everyone for taking their time for being here tonight. I believe in Greenville, and I believe in us, and I want to move Greenville forward. I believe that we need jobs that pay a living wage. I believe in economic development, not just for one section, for all of Greenville. I believe in one community, one city. I'm asking for your vote today because I feel that I have the ability and the wherewithal. I am not bought by any investors. I have my own money that I'm working for this campaign because I believe that Greenville could use a new direction and new leadership.
Thank you, Candidate Boston Hill. Mayor Connolly, you have 2 minutes to provide your closing statement, starting now.
It's been an absolute honor to be able to serve the citizens of Greenville over the last 2 years as the mayor and 2 years as the city council representative for District 5. We've seen a lot of great things that have happened over the last 2 years, but we still have a lot of work that needs to be done. But over the last 2 years, we've seen some great things as far as jobs are concerned. We've created the Greenville ENC Alliance, which is a collaborative process that brings all of our partners together at the table, working together to bring jobs to our community and also to retain those jobs. In addition to that, we also have to think about making sure that those jobs that are coming into our community have the workforce that's able to jump in and be successful. So one of the things I'm most proud about is the city has focused on putting money towards Pitt Community College in our workforce development program. And I'll give a shout out. Miss Representative Candy Smith was the first one to lead the charge on that, and we're continuing to hold that torch and move it forward, because we understand it's important that once those jobs come into our community, or those jobs are created from the businesses that are currently here, we need to make sure that we have a workforce that's readily able to jump in and be successful. So that's something that we're going to continue to work on. Another thing I think is very important is public infrastructure. I think that we need to continue to focus on investing in our public infrastructure. As you've seen, there's been a tremendous amount of infrastructure improvements over the last several years. When in 2014, we were spending about $500,000 on our roads in our community. Those are city roads. Over the last 2 budget cycles, we spent $2.5 million. In addition to that, we've increased some of the sidewalks in our community. We've also created more bike lanes to our community for multimodal transportation. We've also increased the size and length of some of our greenway system. So it's extremely important to understand that it needs to be a multifaceted approach. In addition to that, we also need to make sure that this community is safe. And we've seen a 22% reduction in crime in 2018, which is fantastic. It's great to be able to see that, but there's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done in addition to that. And we also need to make sure that there's a quality of life aspects. We want Greenville to be a great place to live and people to have a good time living here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come out here and listen to the candidates. And I look forward to the opportunity to earn your vote on November 5th.
Thank you, Mayor Connolly. This concludes our segment for the Greenville mayor's seat. Thank you, Mayor Connolly, and candidates Boston Hill and Hicks.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Demetrius Hicks, and I'm running for mayor of Greenville. The reason I'm running for is because really as a country and as a city, we have a lot of work that we need to do. Whether it be preparing for the climate crisis that is coming in the next 11 years or coming to environmental justice. We need to work on that type of stuff. And automation altogether, because over the next 11 years, automation will also take a big hold over a lot of jobs in our communities. So we need to really take that stuff seriously and really prepare for the future. So the way that I believe that we should go about that is green jobs. So that means bringing in jobs that are bus manufacturers, solar panel manufacturers, and things of that nature. But also not just that, but worker cooperatives, where people will be able to own their own workplace. Because traditionally we always work for places like Target, work for Vidant, et cetera, and we don't really have that democracy in our workplace. And it's really unfortunate because we spend so many hours of our days and our lives really in our workplace, and we don't have any say in it. So I believe that we should have a democratic workplace in our city. And I want us to work on affordable housing, where we can actually have apartments that go for $500, $600 a month, as opposed to what's going on uptown right now that are about $1,300 a month. And just fostering a collaboration culture in our city, because right now, when it comes to the state government, we aren't collaborating nearly enough, even though the state government is providing funding towards Western North Carolina at an unprecedented rate. Western North Carolina meaning Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh, et cetera. So we need to really advocate for more funding for infrastructure within our own region. So that's some of the things that I want to work on if I become mayor of your city, or of our city perhaps. And I really do appreciate you all listening tonight, and thank you, and you have a nice night.
It's PJ Connolly. I'm the mayor of the city of Greenville. It's been great to be able to be a part of this forum today. I look forward to the opportunity to earn the citizens' vote for another term as the mayor of the city of Greenville. We've seen a lot of great things that have happened over the last 2 years, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue that great progress and make a focus on jobs, make a focus on infrastructure improvements, public safety, quality of life, as well as being fiscally responsible at the same time. Look forward to the opportunity to answer more questions of the citizens, and I look forward to earning your vote on November 5th.
This completes our candidates forum. I ask that you remain seated momentarily as we provide closing remarks. On behalf of NPHC and Democracy NC, thanks to you, our audience, as well as our candidates for your participation this evening. As a reminder, one-stop early voting is presently being conducted from 8 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. at the main site, the Center at Alice King Conference Park Conference Room, located at 4561 County Home Road. Remaining one-stop early voting dates include Friday, October 25th, and Monday, October 28th, through Friday, November 1st. Greenville's municipal election will be held on Tuesday, November 5th. Polls will be open on Election Day from 6:30 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. I'll now direct your attention to your programs. Please take a look inside. There in your program, you will find a place to identify 3 persons to take with you to the polls. Let's encourage every voter to vote in every election. Again, thank you for your time and consideration this evening. We will see you at the polls. Good night.
Hi, my name is Marquez Thompson, M-A-R-Q-U-E-S Thompson, with Democracy North Carolina. I'm the regional manager organizer for this region, and we just had the privilege of partnering with the Panalytic on another candidate forum. We do this every year, and every year it's very important to our community. This year, like other years, we have endeavored to have this event in the community in West Greenville, whereas a lot of African-American voters, or a lot of people that are often left behind by the political process, so it's very important that we had the forum here. I'm very thankful that most of the candidates came out. In fact, I believe we only had one candidate that didn't show up, and there were a number of issues that were covered. There were good, hard questions from the audience, and we got some answers. The number one issue that I was concerned about was the issue in District 2, and I'm thankful that some of the candidates decided that they would support democracy in this. No matter what happens, they would be in favor of letting the will of the people take precedent, and that's really something that I was really concerned about. But there were a lot of good questions, and I think the community was well served tonight.
Good evening. My name is Ursula Bell, and I thought tonight's event was awesome. It engaged the public. We were able to give needed information that is also important to our communities. It's for everyone, even though we had pretty much a diverse group. And I think that it's also very critical that we get out to vote. Not only register, but we have to get out to vote. It does us no good to register and not go to the polls. I think all the candidates are reputable, and I think they will do a good job. But we have to make sure that we are informed about where they stand and what we look for in the community and for ourselves, for the betterment of our not only the citizens, but our community in Greenville. Thank you.
My name is Freddie Outerbridge, and I enjoyed this forum tonight. And we had some very interesting questions, and instant answer. It's so important that you take a part in this so you can get out and vote. It's so important to get out and vote because it's about your life. Thank you.
My name is Chanel Coleman Sellers. I'm calling with a plea for everyone to get out and vote. This forum that we had tonight was very informative. We have a wonderful selection of candidates for this voting on November the 5th. We need everyone in the county to come out and vote. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
I'm Robert Cherry. I served as moderator of tonight's Candidates Forum, sponsored by the National Panhellenic Council of Pitt County, as well as Democracy NC. It was an absolute pleasure to have the audience come out to tonight's forum to engage in dialogue with candidates. The event was well received, and look forward to the public being engaged as it moves towards voting in the Greenville municipal election on Tuesday, November 5th.